Look at that. Look at how gorgeous, all the layers. It looks so good. Today I am making a classic meat and cheese lasagna. Now I'm not gonna lie, this is an easy recipe, but it is not a quick recipe. And I hope that you cook along with me. I think we're gonna enjoy our time together. Let's get started on our sauce, starting with the meat. I'm going to turn my burner on to medium high. And in here I have got 1 pound of ground beef and half a pound of sausage. And if you know me, you know that anytime something calls for sausage, I always use Jimmy Dean regular sausage. I really like the flavor, and I feel like I don't have to do as much seasoning on my own because it's already seasoned the way that I like it. But you can also use Italian sausage. In fact, that would probably be more traditional. The only thing is that if you have sausage and it's in a casing, you will want to remove the casing before you cook it. And the casing is like that skin, that tube that it comes in. You can do that by either using kitchen shears or a knife to just kind of slice down through that and then pop out the meat mixture that is inside. My ground beef looks a little bit funny because I had to thaw it out in the microwave today. I forgot to thaw it out earlier, and so I was in a little bit of a pickle. I do not like to thaw out my meat in the microwave. Meat is happiest when it's thawed out slowly. So what I usually do is, a day or two before I'm going to use it, I pull it out of the freezer and I put it in the refrigerator. And then by the time I need it, I pull it out of the refrigerator and kind of, let it sit for maybe 15-20 minutes to come up to room temperature a little bit. And I find that the quality of the cooked meat is just so much better. But sometimes we forget. And sometimes we aren't thinking about what we're going to have for dinner 2 to 3 days from now. And so I used the defrost setting on my microwave, and it's not my favorite, but you got to do what you got to do sometimes. And just continue to kind of break it up and stir it around every now and then, but for the most part, this is a pretty kicked back process. I think I might add some seasonings at this point. I'm not going to add salt because my sausage is pretty salty, but I think I am going to add a little garlic, a little onion powder. I'm not doing onions in my sauce, and so definitely onion powder. Let's do like 2 teaspoons of onion powder, 2 teaspoons of garlic powder or granulated garlic, maybe about 1/4 of a teaspoon of black pepper. And we always like a little kick at our house, so I'm going to go in with some red pepper flakes too. Seasoning as we go helps to really develop a nice rich flavor. I do want to get some browning on there, so we want to wait until all of that pink is gone and we start to see some caramelization. And while that meat is cooking, I'll talk to you a little bit about the sauce that I like to use. Once this meat is done, I'm going to go in with a couple jars of Classico Sweet Basil, Traditional Sweet Basil. It is my favorite sauce. I just really like the flavor. You can use whatever type of sauce you want. If you have a recipe that you like for homemade sauce, feel free to go ahead and use it. That will definitely take your lasagna to the next level because everything that's made from scratch, that's made with love and time and care, is always so much better. But today I'm going to go with the jar, and this is my favorite brand, and I would just recommend 2 jars. And these are, how many ounces are these? These are 24-ounce jars each. So I've got a total of 48 ounces here, which may sound like a lot, but in the past I have tried to just do 1 jar, and it feels like it's a little bit of a stretch. And I would much rather have too much sauce than not enough sauce. So I just go ahead and I do 2 jars. And then at the end, if I have sauce left over, it's not a sad thing. I just package it up. I usually wait till it cools, put it in a Ziploc bag, try to push out as much air as possible, and then stick it in the freezer. And then the next time I want a really quick, really easy meal, I just pull it out and let it thaw, and then reheat it on the stovetop and serve it over some pasta, some spaghetti or some penne, whatever you happen to have handy in the house, and super quick and easy dinner. So definitely would rather have too much sauce than not enough. Okay, I'm not seeing much pink anymore. Gonna let that go just a little bit longer. Get it kind of nice and toasty. For depth of flavor purposes, we really do want to cook this and brown it, because that's where the flavor really starts to develop. And that happens by not stirring it for a while. So I'm just gonna let it be for a few minutes, hopefully allow it to develop a little bit of crust on the bottom there. And this has taken a little bit longer than I'd like, so I'm just gonna kick up my heat just a little bit more, not too much. See if we can get that to start to caramelize a little bit. We don't want it to burn, but we want it to like almost burn. Almost burn is good, burn is bad. All right, the house is starting to smell good already. Okay, I'm starting to get what I'm looking for. I don't know if you can see it in the camera with all of this steam going on, but I do see some caramelization happening, some kind of crispy brownness. Like I said, this lasagna does take a little time, but it is well worth the patience in the end. Honestly, I'm standing here because I'm making this video, but if I was just making this at home on my own, I'd be off doing other things and just come in, you know, every few minutes to give it a stir and see how it's going. Okay, I'm starting to see some nice char, so I'm going to add in the 2 jars of spaghetti sauce. There's 1. Okay, and then we're going to stir it. Kind of scrape the bottom as you stir. Try to get some of that burnt or char off of the bottom of your pan. There's a lot of flavor in there from the meat. And then I'm going to get a spoon and I'm going to do a little taste test. But I'm going to do so with an open mind because as this simmers, all of the flavors are going to start to really enhance. It takes some time for them to develop. So we don't have to be too judgy yet, but I do just kind of want to see if there's any major thing that's missing. And you can see it's already starting to boil over here. I don't really want it to boil hard. So I'm going to kick down my burner a little bit to maybe just a little under medium. We do want it to simmer, but we don't want it to be boiling. And you know, if you're looking at your stovetop and you've got splatters of sauce all over, it's probably going too hard. Go ahead and kick it down a little bit. But we do need that simmering action, as I said, to really bring out those flavors. Okay, so I can tell right now that it does need salt. I'm going to put in a couple pinches of salt. I'm also going to put in a little sugar. It's very acid forward. Tomato sauce, tomatoes are acidic. And so to help offset some of that acidity, I'm going to do a couple of tablespoons of sugar. And this is personal preference. If it tastes good to you, you just leave it alone, or if you don't like a sweeter sauce, don't worry about it. But when somebody says that something is well balanced, it means that it has a good balance between fat and acidity and sweetness and salty. So when I taste that and the first thing that I notice is that it's acidic, then I want to come in and offset that with something. And we'll see if I salted it enough. It was definitely missing salt, and I felt like it was missing sugar as well, sweetness. Give it another little try. So much better. Okay, a little bit more salt. Salt is a flavor enhancer. And so if you feel like the flavor is falling just a little bit flat, or it's like, just kind of blah, add a little bit of salt and see what that does. And you'll be surprised how as you add salt, all of a sudden, all of these flavors start to emerge. Okay, last time. I think this is going to be the winner. Perfect. And as I said, as it simmers, it's just going to get better and better. So that took some time, but it's going to be well worth it in the end. We're going to go ahead and let that simmer. And in the meantime, another layer that we're going to have is an herbed ricotta cheese. So while our sauce is simmering, we can at least get a head start on that. Now I have a homemade ricotta, and I just made it in a prior video, and I have put the link to that video in the end screen. I highly recommend making your own ricotta for lasagna. I am cheating today with my jarred sauce, and you'll see here in a minute with my pasta noodles. This is where I splurge because to me, this is what really takes the lasagna to the next level. So I highly recommend watching my prior video and taking a shot at it. But you can always use store-bought ricotta as well. And we are going to make our ricotta even better. I'm going to use a little olive oil, and we're gonna spruce it up with some salt and pepper and some Italian herbs, and we're gonna make a really nice ricotta layer. So I'm gonna do about 1/4 teaspoon of salt. A little cracked pepper, probably about 1/4 teaspoon there. Gonna drizzle in a couple of tablespoons of olive oil, and we'll see, based on the texture, if we need a little bit more. Then I'm gonna do a teaspoon of Italian seasoning, just a blend. Teaspoon of parsley. And if you wanted to use fresh herbs, that would be even better. But this is easier and cleaner. I'm gonna do a teaspoon of granulated garlic. And I forgot my basil. As you can tell by the sauce that I use, that's the sweet basil sauce. I really like basil, so I'm gonna add some more basil. Do about a teaspoon of basil too. Give that a stir. And as you can see, the cheese is a little bit crumbly, and we want to smooth that out. We want to add enough olive oil to make it a little more creamy, a little more smooth, less chunky. So I'm going to add another tablespoon of olive oil. See where that gets us. Okay, looking better. And it smells so good. Okay, I'm gonna just take a little pinch and give it a taste and see if it's got enough salt. Needs more salt. I'll do another 1/4 teaspoon. Give it another taste. And that is pretty good. And since I used dried seasoning, this little bit of time in the fridge is going to be especially important to allow those herbs to soften a little bit and for their flavors to really marry in the cheese. And just a quick little check-in on our sauce. You can see it's got a real nice simmer going on it. So that is looking really good also. And again, it doesn't, you don't need to babysit it. Just, every few minutes, come and give it a little stir. You'll feel it kind of sticking to the bottom a little bit. Do a little scrape, and there you go. My sauce has only been simmering for 30 minutes, but I think it's already done. So I will show you what that looks like in just a second. But before we do that, let's go ahead and get our oven preheated to 375. Okay, over the course of the 30 minutes, I've had to gradually turn down the heat to pretty low because the bubbles, as the sauce gets thicker, the bubbles get kind of aggressive and splatter when they pop. So I've gradually gone down to pretty low. And you can see when I stir here that the sauce has gotten real nice and thick and meaty. And so I think that we are probably done here. So as it simmers, you see the steam coming off. That's the moisture in the sauce that is kind of evaporating. That's what makes it reduce in size and get thicker. And also what helps to really just intensify all of those flavors in there. So before we pull it off the heat, I am going to do a final taste test and see where we are at with our seasoning. It was pretty darn perfect when we tasted last, so it should be even better. Yep, that tastes really good. I think we're perfect. So we will start on our assembly. I do not make lasagna often enough to have invested in a lasagna pan. A lasagna pan would be perfect for this because I think that they're a little bit deeper than a normal pan, but I am using the biggest pan that I have, which is a 13 by 9, and it's only 2 inches deep, which means that my lasagna is going to be up to the very, very tippy top. And I know from experience that it's going to be darn near overflowing. And so since I don't want it to bubble over into the bottom of my oven and create a mess that is going to be a nightmare to clean up, I also have a baking sheet, and I'll just put this on top of that, and then anything that bubbles over gets caught with the baking sheet. Okay, so I've got my sauce here, and that's going to be my first layer. I'm going to put in some of this meat sauce. And this goes down first so that the bottom layer of noodles doesn't stick to the pan. I'm just going to kind of give it a shake and make sure that the bottom of the pan is nice and coated. Probably need a couple more spoonfuls. Maybe one more. The sauce always goes faster than you think it's going to. Okay, so that looks pretty coated. And then I like to use these Barilla brand oven ready lasagna. And I like them because they're super easy, and I like the texture when they're done. And I also like that they are flat and they don't have those ridges on the edge, because it just makes for a nice even layer when it's all said and done. And we're just going to cover the bottom here as much as we can. Can't really get into the corners perfect, but that is okay. And I'll do a couple of them here in the middle. And then I've got my herbed ricotta mixture, and I want to use about half of it. And for easy spreading, I just put it in little blobs. Makes it a little bit easier to spread it without moving the noodles around. Let's see if that's enough. Just spread it out. This is the fun part. We're almost there, guys. The hard part is done. Okay, it looks like we need a little bit more right there in that corner. A little bit more in that corner. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then I've just got some pre-shredded mozzarella. Quick and easy. This is an 8-ounce bag. I'll probably use maybe a little less than half of it. I don't like to go super thick because mozzarella, when it melts, can sometimes get real, stringy and chewy. I've got a hair. I always am shedding in my food. Normally I put my hair up when I cook for that reason, especially when I'm cooking for other people, but I tell you, vanity gets the best of me on these videos. I look like an idiot with my hair up. Okay, so just a thin layer of shredded mozzarella there. And then another layer of our meat sauce. And just making sure that we save enough of the meat sauce to go on the top. We definitely want our top layer to be fully covered in the meat sauce so that we don't have crunchy noodles. Just gonna spread that around. If you bake the noodles and they've got dry spots, they get real hard and crunchy, and we don't want that. So definitely just keep in mind that you need enough sauce to really get a good coat on the top. All right, and then we do another layer. I kind of try to do every layer a little bit different as far as the noodle placement goes. Okay. And then we can go ahead and use up the last of our ricotta mixture because this is the last ricotta layer that we're going to do. Again, just coming in with little blobs to make it easier to spread. And sometimes I forget, your pan doesn't have to stay in one spot. You can spin it around to make things a little bit easier from time to time. Okay, looks like a pretty good layer here. With a little bit of the shredded mozzarella. All right, and then we're not going to do a meat sauce on this layer because it's going to go on the top. But this is our last pasta layer. And one box is never quite enough, so I always get two. One box is not enough and two is too many. I think that they do that on purpose sometimes. Okay, and then this is going to be our last sauce layer. Oh, sliding noodles. And it's a good thing that I made those 2 jars because I think I needed every last bit of it. No leftovers for the freezer this time. and again, really trying to make sure that we can get all that noodle covered. Okay, that looks pretty good. Even though I do see some noodle poking through, that's okay because I do have some sauce on there. And once this thing starts to boil and everything, that's going to be fine. And then to finish off, we're going to make it pretty. I'm going to use the last of this shredded mozzarella just to kind of get some even coverage here. For the top, I like some fresh mozzarella cheese. And I usually buy the kind that is pre-sliced to, make my life easy. But I couldn't find it at the store. All they had was this whole block. So I'm going to make my own slices. And again, try not to go too thick. We don't want it to be super stringy on the top. Well, that wasn't a good slice. That was too thin and didn't look pretty. Yeah, that's okay. I don't know how many of these we need. Let's check and see. Just kind of lay these along the top here. Thinking maybe 9. A couple more. I've got a couple of fresh basil leaves and I'm just going to roll them up. And then cut them into little ribbons. Right. Sprinkle those on. Then we need to cover it with foil for the first amount of time that it bakes. And I do not want all of this gorgeous cheese to get stuck to the foil. So I've got a little squirt bottle here full of olive oil. And I'm going to give it a couple squirts. And then I got a pastry brush and I'm just going to lightly oil the foil. I'm a poet and didn't know it. Now I made another video about this olive oil in a bottle trick. I'll leave a link to it in the end screen. I use it for a lot of things in the kitchen, and this wasn't even one of the ways that was featured in that video. So this is a bonus use for my $1 travel size spray bottle. Okay, we're going to cover our pan. And then I'm going to look on the pasta box to see how long we're supposed to bake it for, because really the only thing in this dish that we are concerned about cooking right at this point is the lasagna noodles. So I'm going to follow the directions on the box, which say to bake for 25 minutes and then uncover and bake for 5 more minutes. All right, in the oven we go, 25 minutes. I'll see you back here later. It has been 25 minutes, so now we are going to very carefully, trying not to burn ourselves, take off the foil. Which might be trickier than it sounds. Try to find a weak point. Here we go. And it's going to probably be steamy in there too, so be careful. All right, we did have a little bit of sticky cheese, but not too bad. It looks really, really good. And now this is going to go in for another 5 minutes. Now the instructions say back in the oven for 5 minutes, but I am going to turn on the broiler because the whole point of these last 5 minutes is to get the top all nice and brown and bubbly and delicious looking. And if you just put it in on bake, sometimes that can take a little while, and I think we have waited enough. So I'm gonna turn the broiler on, and what the broiler does is it puts direct heat on top of the lasagna. I will say, be very careful with your broiler. It tends to brown things very, very fast. So stay close to your oven, pay close attention. We have come too far for burnt lasagna. Mine was under the broiler for about 2 minutes, and that is absolute perfection. We've got some bubbling, we've got some browning. Looks amazing. And now for probably the hardest part of all, we need to let this sit and rest for 20 to 25 minutes. And I know it's hard because at this point we have been smelling it for like hours now. And we are so ready to eat it. But it's kind of like a hot pizza when you pull out the slice and the cheese falls off. If we slice it now, it's not going to hold its layers really nice, and it's probably just going to be way too hot to enjoy anyhow. We've come this far, we might as well do it right. Finally, our wait is over. Look at that. Look at how gorgeous, all the layers. It looks so good. The moment that we have all been waiting for. Worth every minute that we put into it. I'm going to take another bite. That creamy ricotta, that homemade ricotta is just really comes through. And I like the texture of the pasta. It's real soft. I love it. So good. This is something that it's a labor of love. And when I told my kids that this is what I was making for this video, they were so excited. They've been looking forward to it all day. They keep coming into the kitchen like, how much longer? How much longer? And it just brings me so much joy, and it's so rewarding when at the end of the day, everybody sits down and they just enjoy it so much. Makes me feel really good. If you want to make something that your friends and family are going to talk about for a long time, this is definitely it. I just want to say thank you to my cousin who got me the shirt. I love it. I love it. I love that you can read it and I don't have to say it because I don't really like saying it all the time. It makes me kind of uncomfortable. But I do really need your comments and your feedback to make my channel better for you. So, gonna say it anyhow. Please like, subscribe, but more importantly, comment and share. And if you didn't cook along with me today, I hope that maybe you'll take a stab at it. If not this video, then one of my other videos, and let me know how it goes for you. And I can't wait to see you next time.